Hi everyone, and welcome to Series 2 of the Confidence Conversations podcast. I'm Gail from Enrichment Coaching, and I'm a personal development and confidence coach. My vision is to live in a world where people feel confident to be their best authentic version of themselves every day. I really want to empower people to take action through exploring what I like to call their confidence DNA and how they can enrich it. So my style of coaching is really informal, it's conversational, and it will always be all about you. I'm not all about models and theory, although I do believe they have their time and place. I'm really actions focused, I'm direct, and there's no fluffy stuff involved. And I'm a big believer in pulling up your big pants and going and getting stuff done. Now, I love to make a difference to those beliefs that you have about what you think you can and cannot do. So if you've been thinking about how one-to-one coaching might work for you and you want to find out more, then get in touch through my website, which is enrichmentcoaching.co.uk, and you can find my links at the bottom of each show notes. So enough about me. I'm really excited to be back with Series 2 of the Confidence Conversations podcast with some incredible guests who are ready to talk honestly about them and their confidence. Now, for this series, rather than kind of general confidence conversations, we're going to be digging a bit deeper to understand more about the things that have an impact and the things that enrich your confidence. And remember, there's little to no editing, meaning the conversation you hear is really authentically confident. If you listen regularly, I'd love you to subscribe. And more than that, I'd love to hear what you think. So feel free to get in touch. So go on and listen to the latest episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Confidence Conversations podcast. And today is all about style and personal brand with the one and only Vicky Booker. Hi Vicky.
Hello. That's nice
Thank
to be
you.
known as the one and only.
Yeah, well, you are the one and only, right? Totally.
Oh,
So before we get into anything else, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
well, so I am, as you said, a style and personal brand coach. So I have been doing this it's 10 years this year, Gail, would you believe?
Amazing.
So I love what I do. And in a nutshell, I help people to understand what their style is, what suits them, and how to show up with confidence in terms of how they look and present themselves. So it could be, I work with individuals, so people like us that maybe want a little bit of a boost, style boost, but I also do work with groups and companies as well to help them make sure that their teams are really sort of nailing their personal brand and making sure that they're presenting themselves and their companies in the best way. So it's quite varied, which I love.
Yeah.
But yeah, the main thing is just really getting a kick out of helping people to just come alive and feel confident. So this is a very apt subject for you.
Totally. And I think
Yep.
So yeah, I think the confidence thing is really, really apt. And I think for me, when we think about confidence as a whole, one of the things which is in my confidence iceberg, which if the listeners haven't heard that, there's a trailer episode to Series 2 where I talk about it. It's also on my YouTube channel. But one of the things that we know really affects confidence is environment. And for me, environment includes how you look and how you feel and how you dress and kind of your presence and how you present yourself.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a big part of it, I'd say, because I know a lot of your coaching is probably about bringing out that inner confidence, but how you present on the outside is a massive part.
Yeah, and I always remember in my early coaching days chatting to somebody who was a bit concerned about going into like a boardroom situation. And she was like, oh, do you know what? I've got some red trousers. I think I might wear them. And I remember seeing her in the office this day in these red trousers and saying to her, wow, they look amazing. You look great. And I saw her afterwards and said, oh, how did the meeting go? She went, I'm going to wear those red trousers all the time. She's like, I think, I felt like I said my piece and I stood up for myself. And so they really gave her quite a bit of power.
Well, this might be digressing off topic, but there is a lot of psychology to what you wear and the colours, and red is a powerful colour. Depends on culture, but we call, if you wear red with a darker colour shade, we call that a power combo. So she wasn't just making that up, Gail. She probably did, yeah. And it's a very visual, noticeable colour. So it's like an I mean business colour. So yeah, if you really want to go in and nail something and rock it, a red item is quite good.
It's the choice to make.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I know you talk about your big pants, so we have to talk about pants. I could shoehorn this in here somewhere.
Brilliant.
But I have to, some of my clients I've worked with, either they just don't want to go for red for whatever reason, or it's too much. They have actually worn red pants so that they get the feeling of confidence and power, but it's kind of slightly hidden away, we hope.
Right, and I love that, because big pants, and if you're a regular listener, you'll know all about the big pants. And I'm look, you don't have to shoehorn pants in with me anywhere, right? But I think that's and that for me is the power of the pant, the big pants kind of thing, because almost what you're doing there is they're red pants, whatever size they might be. But let's just say, you know, for example, you're pulling them on, aren't you? You're pulling them up because you want them to give you a little bit of power, a little bit of confidence, that burst of, right, I've really got this. And almost for me, there's something about you know, having your positive pants on, your big pants, however you want to refer to those, is that secret thing that nobody knows you've got them on. Yes. I love that. I really love that. Everyone's going out now to buy red pants. Yeah. Maybe in a bit you can tell us the best place to find red pants.
I do a blog on it. Power pants. We could call them the power pants.
Totally, the power pants team, definitely. That's like our superpower. So look, before we get into the real detail, because I'm really interested in some of the psychology around colours as well, tell me about what confidence means to you.
Well, I was thinking about this, and it's quite hard to just pinpoint one thing. But if we move aside just from the clothing side of it for a moment, in terms of general confidence, I feel for me it's about having trust that you know that you can handle something, but not feeling like you have to know everything, but trusting that you can deal with whatever comes up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
And I was having a discussion with someone that I know fairly well, and she said, "Oh, you're always such a confident person." I said, "Well, no, I'm not. I'm not always confident, and I've not always been confident. It's something I've worked at quite a lot over the years." And she was quite surprised to hear that I'm naturally a bit of an introvert rather than an extrovert. So I think sometimes people think confident people are always like the really out there, jazz handsy, loud, and it's not that. You can be quietly confident. I was, be described as quietly confident, but it's that trusting that you don't have to have the answer, but trust that you can deal with what comes up. So that sort of resourcefulness and being brave, confident to try stuff, even if you don't know you're going to do it well. So yeah, that would, in terms of your general inner confidence. And then to me, feeling confident would be that I know I look the part as well, because of obviously what I do. I need to make sure so it's the two parts, the inside bit and the outside.
Yeah, and I love how all of that kind of comes together. And I think this whole thing around trust, and for me, this is exactly what confidence is about. It's about the trust in yourself that you know you can handle whatever it is that comes your way without winging it or faking it, that you're just going to have this, as you described it, kind of quietly confidenceness. We'll make up our own words too. Yep. And this thing about you know, being a confident introvert, I think this is coming up more and more. And I think in some cases, people that have gone back to working in offices have noticed probably how it impacts their confidence. You know, being in the office all the time can be really draining, and if they're a quite introvert person, they feel like they need to be at home to kind of process that. And you know, those days where they work from home to kind of, I suppose, what's the word, decompress in that sense. But I think as well, when you do have that trust in yourself and you know you can handle something, that's where your resourcefulness does kick into place, and then your resilience as well, because you'll go into something the second time knowing, well, actually I did this the first time and I've built up that little bit of resilience. And then of course, as well as you say, you know, looking the part as well, I think probably adds to that kind of trust of I can handle this. Back to the pants and the red trousers thing of saying, I've got them on, I can do this. And as I realize that we're recording this and we can see each other, and I'm kind of sitting taller and doing the action of pulling up pants that people can't see.
It does. It does change your physiology as well. So
it totally does. Yeah, it totally does. It's even things like, you know, wearing heels, they make you walk differently, don't they? You know, and I don't often wear them, and they do make me feel different, partly because I'm concentrating so much as well that I might fall over in them.
Yeah, you have to make sure you can walk well in them. Otherwise, it's not a good look.
Definitely not. So what do you think impacts your confidence, in the sense that, you know, you've said I'll trust myself. So what negatively impacts your confidence, I suppose?
Yes, I would say it's if I'm in a situation where it's really completely unknown to me and I'm not prepared. I do like to be quite prepared for most things, although that doesn't mean I don't sometimes wing it a bit. But I do like to feel that I have a bit of knowledge behind me. And I guess if I am in a situation where it's completely unknown or a lot of variables are unknown, that can make me feel perhaps less confident. And also, I do think there's a lot to be said for your personal energy and state of mind, because you, without going into too deep, but, you know, things are going on for you that aren't great. It really, really does. You know, you haven't got that as much resilience, or you haven't got as much energy to deal with the bits that maybe you don't know as much about or that you aren't as prepared for. So some things can be slightly out of your control, but generally, yeah, that not being prepared or the unknown is probably the thing that would impact my confidence.
Yeah, and I think, as I've spoken to a lot of people about this, that's what a lot of people say about knowledge, you know, where they've got the knowledge of what's happening. I guess I love a bit of a metaphor, right? So I guess it's a little bit of like, you know, when you're going somewhere, where do I park? How do I get there? What am I going to wear to this event? You know, what do we do about parking? Or what's the traffic going to be like? All of those unknowns all impact you, don't they? And then I think when you're going into something that's bigger and you don't feel prepared, that's then when you can feel the nerves starting to kick in. So preparation and knowledge, I think, are really key to high confidence or sustained levels of confidence.
Yeah. And I think, and obviously a public speaking example is one of the biggest things that people can relate to. So if you know you're going to be giving a talk, if you're prepared and you have the knowledge, yes, you might be really nervous and not feel maybe as confident, but you, again, that's where you can rely back on that trust that I have got the resources. But if you're put on the spot, you might think, oh, I'm not confident to do that, depending on what it is. But actually, I mean, in coaching terms, you know, you can pull on all your different sort of little toolboxes, can't you, to get you through. But in that initial moment, that is the fear, isn't it? That initial fear of, oh, what am I doing? What are they going to say? People will laugh at me, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think I hear a lot about where people don't speak up in those moments, where they've been put on the spot, or, you know, where it's open to the group. And what normally happens in those situations is people will come to coaching, or they'll walk away going, God, I really wish I'd have spoken out, because the person that you know, that said something, actually, that's what I was going to say. We've all been there, right? But I think you're right. I think it's about it. Look, it's all wrapped up in the fear, isn't it, of judgment. And I guess you probably get this a lot in what you do, in terms of the clothes that maybe you pick out, where people might go, oh, I can't wear that color, or I've not worn. I'll give a shout out. I think did you work with Alison Craig? I'm sure she won't mind me saying,
yes.
because I went to a talk that she did, which was amazing. I think she had a red suit on.
Yeah,
and she said after all the years that she'd worked in the corporate world, she never thought she'd see herself in red, and she looked amazing.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. So one of the things I do, if people aren't aware of it, is this, we call it color analysis. It sounds a bit scientific, which it is to an extent, and it's about picking the colours that really suit you and bring you alive. Now, I always say, I'm not the colour police, you can wear whatever you like, because I'm not all about telling people what to do. This is where being a stylist, but also a coach comes in. However, if you know what colours really suit you, it just energizes you and makes you look really amazing. And yes, Alison really rocked that red suit, I have to say. So I'm glad that you saw her in it and thought she did she did do really well.
Amazing. Just she looked great. She definitely rocked it, definitely. So let's talk a little bit then about the psychology of color. So I do color profiling, but not like you do. So mine's all about behaviors, as you well know. But I'm really interested. So look, I'm wearing black today, right? And I think every time you see me, I'm probably wearing black, because I always say I'm happy in my relationship with black. And I'm sure a lot of people say that too. Yeah.
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about the colours and how they work, if you can.
So the interesting thing, I often get people say, all I ever wear is black or navy or dark colours, and if you tell me I can't wear them, I'll hate you, sort of thing. But again, it's a choice, and it's absolutely fine. If you're comfortable with it, look great in it, then it's absolutely no right or wrong. However, very quick whistle stop tour, but generally the darker a colour, it's seen as a little bit more authoritative. So if you're in a sort of maybe a more classic corporate environment and you have to go in and deliver some very serious news to someone, a sort of dark navy, a dark charcoal would be seen as that sort of authoritative, conservative with a small c. Whereas if you were to go in like the bright red suit, you're going to be seen as a bit more, I mean business, don't mess with me, I'm powerful, not in a bad way. Green is an interesting one. Very sort of softer greens are often used in coaching, counselling environments because they're quite calming, they're quite neutral. But and it's interesting because I talk about personal branding, and that's about how you show up as an individual. If you think about branding that companies use, the colours are quite a big part of it. So if you imagine you were a counselling service, therapies, and you had bright red, white and black as your branding, it might be a bit of disconnect between the two. It is quite some people don't think about it to this level, but actually if you put a bit of thought behind it, you're conveying a message in what you wear. So blues are quite a sort of calming, safe colour too. Yellow is a sort of yellow and orange are quite energizing, sunshine colours. And sometimes you think about how you see them in nature, and it reflects back to the sort of meaning that we assign to them. But there's loads of it. We again could talk about that all day, but your listeners will probably get a little bit we might hopefully not bored, but
God, it's fascinating, right? So I'm sat here as you're talking about that, thinking about the black that I wear, about it being authoritative, and I think, oh God, I'd like to think that if you know me, I'm not like that. But I'm wondering what the purple says about me, right? So that's my brand colour. It's clearly my big pants colour as well. And I think the purple, obviously the listeners can't see, but if you've seen my social, then it's purple. And actually I've found myself drawn to the purple colour as well, in terms of I've got a couple of purple tops and things like that.
Well, purple's a good one because it's what we call a universal colour. So the purple you've got, and again, I know people listening can't see, but I can see your chair and your folder. So a true purple, I sometimes call it, without product placement, Cadbury's Dairy Milk purple, because most people know it's a colour that generally suits most people's palette, as we call it. So it's a good one to pick in terms of what you wear. It's also quite a kind of in fashion history, it used to be quite a luxurious well thought of colour, because it used to be what you think of royal purple, used to be what the wealthy top of the pile people would wear, you see. So Gail, that's good.
It's this luxurious royal thing that I'm
Yeah.
feeling a little bit,
yeah. But yeah, it's a good all-rounder, I think. And it's not, and again, there's, red doesn't mean that it, or black means that you're being authoritative in a bad way, and it doesn't always mean the same thing in certain contexts. But generally, purple will give off that kind of welcoming vibe and inclusive, I'd say.
All of those words. Yeah, all of those words I'm totally feeling. So how do you manage your confidence then with all of this knowledge that you've got about colours, what you wear? I'm guessing part of what you wear helps you to manage that, but can you tell us a little bit more about how you manage your confidence?
Definitely. So I do this, and I do talk to clients about this if they're working with me sort of in a personal brand coaching capacity, is to think about what sounds maybe a bit over the top to some people, but I always think of it as the begin with the end in mind.
Yeah.
So I've forgotten who.
Stephen Covey.
That's the one, Stephen Covey.
Yeah.
Habits of highly successful people, and one of them is begin with the end in mind, as in think about what you want to achieve. So I actually do think about, what am I doing today? What do I need and want to look and feel like? And then I'll work back to decide what I'm going to wear. Because I know some people are thinking, just chuck on the whatever's clean and ironed, maybe, if you're lucky.
That black top versus that black top.
I mean, believe me, I know you said you're going to take a photo of me later, but I am in my very cozy jumper, a pair of fairly comfy jeans, because I haven't had clients today. I've been walking the dog. I've been to the dentist, very rock and roll. And it's cold. So for me today, it was, I want to feel comfortable. I've got a nice bright green jumper and a leopard print scarf on because, signature style. However, I knew that I just needed to be comfy. I was chatting to you, got, some nice things to do today, a bit of admin. However, if I was going and delivering a workshop for a group of 20 leaders in a company, I would be thinking, right, I do need to have a bit of authority because I'm there to teach them something, give them some knowledge, facilitate a day. I would probably put on my signature look, which would be a smart pair of culottes, a heel, because I do feel much better presenting in a heel. So it gives me that sort of posture, and a jacket, because I do love a jacket, probably in some sort of red, but not too powerful. And then, so it just gives you, and then that makes me feel confident that I'm dressed in a way that's appropriate for what I'm doing that day. So yeah, it might feel a bit over the top to some people, but once you start to know your sort of, your physical colours that suit you, the styles that suit you, and what your style personality is, you can play around with that to then dress for the right occasion. Because I think, again, when you said about impacting confidence, one of the things that does impact my confidence is if I feel like I'm not dressed in the right way for what I'm doing, it really does affect me. So if I bump into a client when I'm walking the dog, I'm like, oh, don't look at me, don't look at my muddy stained trousers and no makeup. So that would be clothing point of view, and that's part of the preparation, and then being prepared, for that example of delivering a workshop, I would make sure that I knew I had all my slides sorted, I knew what I was going to say, and probably do a bit of power posing in the loos. That's another whole topic.
No, but I love all of that, and I'm glad you said about your kind of begin with the end in mind. What you're doing today, what look do I want to have today, and it kind of does all link in with your preparation, doesn't it? Which you talked about earlier. But I wonder subconsciously whether we do. So I mean, not to the extent that you've talked about it, but so for example, this morning I've been out networking, so obviously I've thought a little bit more about what I'm putting on. Yes, it's black, people. I've got a black jumper on, I've got a shirt on that's got hearts on it, but I've got jeans on, and jeans are my go-to, which I guess they probably are for a lot of people as well. So but I did think about which jeans I was wearing, what shoes I was wearing. You know, should probably put my boots on rather than my trainers. So I do a little bit of that, but I guess it comes down to, like you say, and would I wear this if I was doing a workshop? No, probably not. Or I might wear jeans, but I might put something that's got a little bit more of a heel on it. I do that too in workshops. Although I probably have been known to do the odd workshop in bare feet. I'm not sure what that says, but you know, when you're running around and doing things. So maybe that comes back to kind of the almost, I guess, like the welcoming, calming sort of vibe of, you know, come into my workshop and let's just have a bit of a, you know, a nice time. So because I guess one of the questions I was going to ask you as well, how do you feel like you give people confidence with their style? And you alluded to it a little bit there around, you know, once you kind of understand yourself, I guess it's like everything, isn't it? Once you've got a bit of self-awareness, you start to understand yourself a bit more. But can you give us maybe an example of a client that you, clearly not naming them, but a client, you've worked with loads of clients, but someone that you've worked with where you've kind of changed their whole perception about what they wear?
So someone that springs to mind, if you're thinking about the sort of colour side of it, maybe, again, so I often have people say, oh, I couldn't wear that, or can't wear that colour. And there was one lady who was such a lovely lady. She had a really good sense of humour, but I could tell she was sort of holding something back. And she was in her mid to late 60s. So she'd had a bit of life experience, but we did her colours to see what would suit her. And she really suited what we call cool colour palette, which is, yes, it's got black and navy in it, because everyone's got some sort of neutrals. So if anyone wants to do this, don't panic. You won't be like making you wear bright yellow and stuff. But she really looked good in sort of pinks and the purples and like the sort of berry colours, really lovely, rich royal blues. And she was, I really like them, but I just couldn't wear them. I was like, well, why couldn't you? You know, what's stopping you? And then she started to get, I mean, I've had tears in not because I've made someone cry from putting colours on them, but because it's, you know, there's more to it than just the clothes. And it turned out that she, when she was younger, she used to really love clothes and fashion, but her mum was very strict. And she said, if you wear that, you're going to look like, people think you're a tart, basically. And she just had all these messages about, don't make yourself show up because people think badly of you. And she basically had kept herself small by just wearing stuff that blended into the background. And it was really quite sad. And I was like, you can wear something. It's not going to make you look like that. You pick how you want to look. And so she went away, and I said, you don't have to suddenly wear a head to toe jumpsuit in bright fuchsia pink. But she started by just buying like a couple of scarves, and she messaged me the other day to order something from me. And when I went round there, she was wearing royal blue, I think. So no black in sight. And it might sound like a really small thing, but I could tell she had sort of made that shift of, actually, I don't need to be restricted by what someone else said about me 30, 40 years ago. More. Yeah. So yeah, that's just a small example, but not a small example, actually.
No. And what I love about that as well is this whole thing that, so again, back to the confidence iceberg that I talked about at the beginning, one of the things that impacts our confidence is our upbringing, right? And the things that we're told. And I guess that's where your coaching experience comes into play a little bit, because you said, you know, I was aware that she was holding something back. So all of your coaching experience and abilities and training will have told you, right, how do I link this now to how she's feeling in terms of how she's going to look, and that for me is what kind of makes you the one and only, Vicky, right? Because it is those two things that go together that you're able to unpick that for that person, but also in the beginning to be able to identify something like that you might have an inkling, but I think your coach training helps you to kind of do that as well, doesn't it? You know, you can just sense that there's something else. But isn't it interesting that the things that and I've talked about this in some of the other podcasts where this has come up before, you know, the things we take with us from our childhood, you know, the things that we're told. I spoke to Emily and Alan from Yellow Tuxedo, and Alan was talking about, we were talking about being prepared. And he was saying that, you know, when he goes out to present something, if he knows that he's knowledgeable, but if somebody asks him something on the spot, a little bit like we were talking about earlier, he's taken back to 7-year-old Alan in the classroom where the teacher's asked him something and he's fear of getting it wrong. So yeah, it's amazing. But the ability to say, just start small, right? Get a pink scarf, introduce colours in that way.
Exactly.
Makes that feel
print,
manageable.
you know, and it doesn't have to just be the color. It could be, I think one thing was about prints, because everything she had was very plain, and so if it's a print, it's more noticeable. So my sort of USP, as you said, is that as well as the style side of it, I am a coach. So you get a bit more, and that's why my sessions always last longer than they probably should, because I start, that's interesting. Tell me more about why you feel you couldn't wear this. But, you know, all joking aside, that's where the value comes in, because I think some people say, oh, well, it shouldn't matter what you wear, it shouldn't matter what you look like. And yes, in a superficial way, it shouldn't. But actually, this is more about how you feel about yourself. So yeah, I love it.
Well, and I've been on like net walking with you, right? And you're the most glamorous person on there. I like rock up in my crag hoppers with mud all up there, and you're like, what? And I'm like, oh, look at you. And then I start to think, oh, actually, maybe maybe when I'm out walking. So I think that the confidence that you have in terms of what you wear, and you know, when you turn up to things, I'm sure that lots of people look at you and go, oh yeah, you know, maybe I could do a bit of that, and it just gives them confidence.
Yeah. I guess through a little bit of influence, inspiration maybe, but osmosis, fashion by osmosis.
I love it. Brilliant. What's the most common issue then that you come across that people have with their style that's related to their confidence?
I would say there's probably two main things. One is people feeling like they've lost their way a bit in terms of, or lost their identity. Now, this is quite common with women who have had children, because, you know, for obvious reasons, their first few years are taken up with looking after other people and not themselves. And, you know, you have physical changes in your body. You don't have to have had children to do that, but things where people have had a change, whether it's having children, having a divorce, or a tricky time, or changing jobs, and they feel like something shifted. They're not quite sure that how they were dressing before now fits with where they are now. So that's quite interesting. And also, probably, and on that same theme, I often have clients that have, and I do love working with people like this, who have maybe worked for an employer before, whether it's a corporate workplace or something, doesn't have to be corporate, but where they've had almost like a uniform, literally either a uniform or like they've worn trousers and a shirt or a suit or whatever, and then they start their own business, or they completely change what they do, and then they feel like they're not quite, their clothes don't suit that lifestyle. So, and then they're not confident that they're looking how they want to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes loads of sense. And I was just thinking about the maternity piece as well. So I do some associate coaching, and a lot of the coaching I do there is maternity coaching, which is great. And where, because I don't have kids, so where I come in is around the confidence, as you put it, lost identity. And actually, I was chatting to somebody on Monday who is going back to work this week. She's had 2 babies in quite a short space of time, so she hasn't been in an office environment for quite some time because of COVID and maternity, and she's like, oh, and she got quite excited about getting dressed up to go back into the office, because as she was saying, I haven't really lost my identity, but I've kind of been in mum clothes, you know, so I'm actually quite looking forward to getting dressed up, going into the office, and, you know, having that, finding out a little bit about who I am again.
Yeah, it is interesting. And actually, the whole term of dressing up is quite interesting, because you dress down when you're feeling casual and relaxed, and you dress up when you're going out to, it's all another psychology side of it. But a lot of, and it doesn't have to just be women either, I work with men too, and a lot, sometimes people make assumptions about men having an innate higher level of confidence, which I don't know if that's true. But yeah, there's definitely there's a link to some sort of change in life and maybe lacking a bit of confidence in how they present themselves.
And equally, which is why a lot of the time people come to coaching as well, exactly. Isn't it? Because there's a change that's happened. And to your point about, men having an innate sense of confidence, I'm not sure that's entirely true either. No. I think there's definitely a difference between the work I do with men and with women, which I'm sure you're the same. And I think women, and this is a sweeping generalization, right? But often women will overthink things much more, whereas I think men process things quicker and they move on quicker. Which is probably where that kind of perception that they're much more confident kind of comes from. They just don't overthink it in the emotional way like we do, for example.
Yeah. It is funny because sometimes when I did my training, they said, and it's quite true. Women will think about every element of detail and what shoes go with this outfit, and then men will say, tell me what suits me and I'll wear it. I mean, that's very, very generalizing. And yeah, I've got lots of lovely male clients who do put a lot of thought and effort into it and they love it. So
and I'm sure this is where I
tailor it to suit the person. It's not just literally one size fits all is not the approach.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of women that will listen to this that think what a good job they've done with their husbands. I mean, when I met Paul, I'm going back 30 years. I mean, it was a white sock city, right? There's not a white sock in the house anymore. But also, he always laughs because we were on holiday a couple of years ago, and I remember him getting changed. We were going down for dinner, and he got changed. He got some shorts on and a shirt, and I looked at him and I went, "Oh, you got a lot of checks going on there, hon." So now he has this thing where it's like, is this too checky? And I made him get changed. I was like, you're not going out like that. I might have even said, oh, Vicky Booker would kill me if she could see you.
It's like, I'm being used as a threat now. Right?
Threatening. Yeah. Only for me, not for him. So now he has this whole, is this too checky or is this all right? I'm like, no, you're okay.
Oh, bless him.
And that's really simple view of it, isn't it? So look, if you had to tell the listeners then, well, and me in this, because I'm learning so much here, what the link is between how you look, understanding your style and confidence, what is that link for you?
I think it's the idea that when you feel you sort of understand, and actually the colour thing is a really great practical thing to know. But for me, I guess probably the most important thing is knowing what your style personality is. So making sure it sits with who you are. And again, when I work with some clients, I do values work with them because it, again, links with how you present yourself. So when you really get that feeling that you've nailed it, it does make you feel more confident. And I found like a right geek because I do love a bit of research. But there is actually research been done around how what you wear specifically does affect your performance and how effective you are and how confident you are. So if anyone's interested, Professor Karen Pine is the lady to check out. It's quite a short piece of work, so it's quite readable, not like one of these scientific journals that you get. And they did, in a very quick nutshell, they did experiments with groups of people. And one group, they had just their whatever clothes they were wearing as they come in, and another group they put them in superhero t-shirts, and they got them to do a series of activities and exercises and self ratings. And the group that had the superhero t-shirts on as opposed to the plain clothes literally performed better and rated themselves as more assertive, strong, powerful than the other group. And there's obviously a lot more to it than that, but the idea was that what you wear, you actually become what you wear, and it literally gives you confidence. So that's a strong link as any I can give you.
I love that. But also for me, it brings me back around to kind of the big pants thing that we talked about right at the beginning, right, in the red trousers. And actually, if you've got the link to that, and maybe we could put that in the show notes, so if people do want to read it, then they can have a look at that. That's really interesting. And I love the superhero t-shirts. I saw a quote once that said something, do whatever you're doing today with the confidence of a 4-year-old wearing a Batman shirt or outfit or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that's totally it, isn't it?
And I
So,
think my sorry, one point on that you've made me think is that yes, some people may literally want to wear a Superman t-shirt. My version of that is you wearing your ideal outfit based on it being a great color. It fits you really well because that's important in confidence. That it's got to feel physically comfortable, and that it's really you. That is your version of a superhero t-shirt.
yeah, I love that.
So,
And actually, you've probably just answered my last question, which then was the, what one piece of advice might you give someone who wants to be more confident with, say, their clothes choices, the colours or the style? What is your one piece of advice?
well, probably that.
Yeah.
So obviously, I'd love to see people so I can help with that. But if you were to think, what is the item of clothing I've got in my wardrobe that when I put it on, it just feels like it lights me up. I feel comfortable in it, because comfort means different things to different people. Physical comfort, yes, you don't want things digging in and rubbing and like riding up. It's annoying. But actually, does it make me feel comfortable? Does it feel like me? And I know the word authentic self is bandied around a lot, but if you feel, yeah, this is me, that will make you confident. So a good example is when you see a friend and they look amazing in their pink jumpsuit, and it might fit you the same as them, but actually you just wouldn't wear it because it's just not you. So it's that knowing, yeah. So thinking about, if you go to your wardrobe and just pick out a couple of things that make you feel like that, and then replicate them when you're buying new, not literally replicate them because you don't want a whole wardrobe of the same things, but what is it about those items that works for you, and then have them in mind when you're buying new things and when you're dressing.
Yeah, and so those things would be, does it light me up? The physical fit, as in, is it comfortable? Does and does this feel like me? Because sometimes you do put things on, don't you? And you go, oh God, no.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go, oh yeah, I really like that. It feels really nice, that kind of thing. Okay.
And coupled
advice.
with going back to what we said earlier about that begin with the end in mind. So if you think about what you're doing that day, or what the activity is, or the event you're going to, and couple that practical element of what really fits me, suits me, lights me up, plus how do I want to come across, and if you put those two together, you should be firing on all cylinders and rocking into whatever you're doing, looking amazing.
With confidence, smashing it. Totally. Oh, Vicky, look, thank you. And before we sign off, do you want to just quickly say, we'll put this in the show notes as well, but do you just want to tell everybody where they can find you if they want to connect with you and find out more?
Yes, I have a website, vickybooker.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Maybe not as regularly as I could be, but I am there.
You are there, totally. And I do just want to say as well, really funny, Vicky did message me earlier to say, we are just doing video today, aren't we? Clearly because you were thinking about what you were wearing, which I thought was, and I completely missed the message. So that probably didn't help at all in any of your preparation for today. So I do apologise for that. So yeah, look, Vicky, it's been really insightful. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
It's been really good fun. Thank you for asking me.
My pleasure. So thanks for listening, everyone, and join us next time on the Confidence Conversations podcast.